You see, most people misunderstand what we mean when we speak of awakening. They imagine some great lightning bolt of realization, a moment in which the heavens open, angels sing, and the ultimate truth is delivered like a divine telegram. But awakening, in its most ancient sense, is something far more subtle. It is the sudden recognition that the world you were living in was not quite real, that the beliefs you held, the stories you repeated, the God you chased, were all part of a magnificent dream. A dream so vivid that you mistook it for reality, and one of the deepest dreams we fall into is religion. Not the mystical experience, not the direct encounter with the sacred, but the idea of religion, the mental scaffolding we build around something so enormous that it cannot possibly be contained. For what is religion, if not an attempt to capture the infinite? To write it down, to categorize it, to worship it from a safe distance, it is as if we have received a direct invitation to dance with eternity, and instead we frame the invitation and hang it on the wall. We mistake the map for the territory, the menu for the meal, the name of God for God itself. And so, I say to you, religion is the dream, a dream of certainty, of authority, of someone else knowing the truth on your behalf. A dream in which you imagine that you are separate from the divine, and must earn your way back through obedience or suffering, or endless repetition of ancient words whose meaning was lost centuries ago. But here is the rub: you cannot wake up from the dream by fighting it. You wake up merely by noticing that it is a dream, just as when you are asleep the dream never tells you that you are dreaming. You must discover it from within, and most people never do. They spend their entire lives arguing over whose dream is correct. Have you noticed this? One person says, "My God is the true God." Another says, "No, my book holds the truth." And the tragic comedy is that neither of them realizes they are fighting inside a dream no different from arguing in your sleep about who controls the moon. Religion is a magnificent artwork of the human spirit. It is filled with poetry, with ritual, with symbols that point, beautifully at times, toward the unspeakable. But if you cling to the symbol, you miss what it is pointing to. A finger pointing to the moon is not the moon. And no scripture, no doctrine, no cathedral built of stone can ever contain the living mystery of what you truly are. But we cling to them because the unknown frightens us. We would rather worship the cage than face the open sky. And so gods are carved into statues, truth becomes dogma, the mystery is encased in glass, and we bow to the glass instead of the light that shines through it. You see, true spirituality is not a belief. It is a direct experience, like tasting water or feeling the warmth of the sun. You cannot describe it adequately, you cannot trap it in language, you can only be it. And if you think that repeating the words of holy books gives you understanding, you are mistaking echoes for the original sound. A parrot can recite scripture, but that does not make it enlightened. A child can memorize prayers, yet know nothing of the silence from which prayer arises. So the real question is not, what religion is true? The question is, who is the one asking? Who is the one who prays? Who is the one who believes? Who is the one who doubts God, or longs for God, or fears God? If you look deeply, you find nothing but awareness itself, and that awareness is the very thing religion was trying to point you to all along. But religion, as an institution, has a useful function in the dream, because dreams have rules, and many people need rules. They need someone to tell them what is right, what is wrong, what is allowed, what is forbidden. Not because these rules are true, but because they feel safer than the vast uncertainty of freedom. Religion, in that sense, is training wheels for the soul, but eventually the training wheels must come off. The caterpillar cannot stay in the cocoon once it's grown wings. You cannot remain in the nursery forever. Spiritual maturity is not rebellion against religion. It is simply seeing through it, seeing that it was a beautiful story, perhaps even a useful one, but still a story. A dream, a finger pointing, and then you wake up, not into atheism or cynicism or clever arguments against God, but into a startling and radiant intimacy with existence, where the sacred is no longer something out there. You breathe it. You walk through it, you are it. In that awakening, God is not believed in. God is experienced as the wind passing through the trees, as the space between your thoughts, as the strange and inexplicable fact that you are aware right now without effort. The divine becomes as ordinary as breathing, and then you realize, all along, you were sleeping inside a cathedral of your own making. You do not need to destroy it. You only need to step outside and see the sky. And so, when we speak of waking up from religion, it is not an act of rejection. It is an act of recognition. The dream is not wrong. It is simply incomplete, because the scriptures and temples and ceremonies, they are metaphors. Beautiful metaphors, they are like stained glass windows. They glow with sacred color when light passes through them. But too often, we focus on the glass instead of the light. You see, religion begins as a living flame. A moment of truth, a spark of divine insight in the mind of a mystic, someone who saw beyond the veil of usual perception, but the moment that insight is written down, it begins to cool. Words are fossils of experience. Imagine a river running wild through a valley, alive, uncontainable, flowing with power and unpredictability. That river is the original experience, what some call enlightenment, others call union, others call God. Now imagine someone carving that river into stone, shaping it, channeling it, freezing it into shape so it can be preserved. That is religion. The living water becomes a monument, a structure, a belief system. Something that does not flow, but stands still to be admired and protected. Not because people are evil, but because they fear losing the river entirely. And yet, the most sacred thing about a river is that you cannot hold it. You can drink it, swim in it, listen to it whisper in the dark of night, but the moment you cup your hands too tightly, it escapes. That is what we do with spiritual truth. We try to hold it still. We build cathedrals around it. We create rituals to preserve it, forgetting that the ritual was once spontaneous. Religion, then, is like a grand museum that displays the relics of ancient mystical experience. And there is nothing wrong with a museum. It can be inspiring, even life-changing, but the museum is not alive. You must venture outside to find the living forest, where the wind still speaks and the river still sings in its own unknowable language. When you wake up from religion, you are not throwing away the heritage of your ancestors. You are allowing their wisdom to breathe again. You begin to understand that Buddha was not a Buddhist. Jesus was not a Christian. Mohammed was not a Muslim. They did not come to start religions. They came like voices echoing from the mountains, saying, "Look, look where I am pointing." And the tragedy of human nature is that we looked at the finger, argued about its shape, and built temples around it. Now, I am not asking you to leave your religion, far from it. I am asking you to enter it more deeply, to go beneath the words, beneath the rituals, beneath the fear and guilt and pride that often cling to belief, just as barnacles cling to the bottom of a ship. Ask yourself this: do you pray to God, or are you simply afraid of being abandoned? Do you worship, or do you perform rituals because you fear what will happen if you don't? Are you reaching toward the unknowable, or clinging to certainty like a child clutching a stuffed animal? You must be ruthlessly honest with yourself, not in a spirit of criticism, but with the gentle curiosity of someone exploring their own mind in the quiet hours of the night. For the true religion is not found in books or temples or authority. It reveals itself in silence. It reveals itself in those rare moments when your thinking stops, and you notice that something remains. An open, clear awareness that is not judging anything, not reaching for anything, not afraid of anything. It is simply present. That presence is the real church, the real shrine, the real temple. And if you learn to dwell in that presence even for a moment, you will understand what every mystical tradition has been trying to say, long before it became a rigid institution. You are not separate from God, not as a belief, not as a metaphor. You are literally inseparable from the mystery that birthed the stars. Your breath is God breathing. Your thoughts are ripples on the surface of infinity. Your body is the dust of ancient suns, assembled by the universe to gather itself back into awareness. You are born inside the dream, yes, but you are not the dream. You are the dreamer, and once you recognize that, religion becomes something entirely different, no longer a cage or a dogma, but a shared language of human wonder. A container for the sacred stories we tell, not because they are literal, but because they awaken something ancient inside us. Stories are not meant to imprison you. They are meant to set you free. Like a good poem, they do not demand understanding. They invite participation. They say, "Come, step into this way of seeing for a moment." And that invitation, that doorway, is what we call religion. But you must step through the doorway, not worship the frame. And once you do, once you walk into the open air of direct experience, you find that the world itself is the scripture, the rustle of leaves is sacred text, the laughter of a child is gospel, the feeling of your own heart beating in your chest, that is prayer. No one has to teach you how to feel the divine. You already know, because you are of it. You are it, and the dream dissolves. You found yourself in a cathedral of endless marble halls. The walls were carved with stories of saints and sinners, prophets and miracles. The floors echoed with chants and trembling hymns, and everywhere candles flickered like trembling souls, forever trying to reach upward, toward a sky that was never theirs to touch. This dream was religion. You walked through this dream and believed it was the world. Believed that the pillars were eternal, that the hymns were infallible, and that the God who spoke through stained glass was separate from you, above you, watching, judging, loving conditionally. But here's the trouble with dreams. They feel real only because you've forgotten who is dreaming them. You see, every doctrine, every sacred ritual, every whispered prayer, they are like symbols in a dream. Language. Beautiful, yes, inspiring, perhaps, but symbols all the same. A finger pointing toward the moon, not the moon itself. Yet most of us cling to the finger. We polish it, decorate it, build entire institutions around it, and eventually forget to look up and see what it was pointing toward. We dream of heaven while missing the miracle of breath. Right now, you might ask yourself, but what if the dream is all I've ever known? What am I without the belief? Without the story, without the comfort of someone greater than I watching over me? Oh, how we cling to comfort even more than truth. But my dear friends, waking up from the dream is not the end of meaning. It is the beginning of direct experience, the experience of the divine, not as an idea, but as the living pulse that runs through your very being. Religion, you see, seeks the sacred in words, but life reveals the sacred in silence. To understand this, you must leave the walls, not with anger, not with rebellion, but simply by recognizing that the cathedral was built inside your mind. You are both the builder and the believer, and maybe, just maybe, the divine was not sitting on a golden throne above the clouds, but sitting cross-legged in your chest all along, waiting to be recognized. Because the greatest illusion of all was that you were ever separate from what you sought. You may say, but without religion, how shall I live? What shall I be? You will be artists of existence, sculptors of meaning. You will discover that every breath is a prayer, every act a ritual, every moment a communion with the infinite. And in that revelation the dream dissolves, not into emptiness, but into fullness. For when you awaken, truly awaken, you find that reality is not less magical than the myth. It is more. The trees don't just stand, they dance. The rivers don't just flow, they sing. Even the stones silent and ancient hold within them the memory of stars. Can you feel it, the pulse beneath the appearance, the aliveness that does not need to be explained, only experienced? Religion told you the divine was far away. Awakening reveals it's everywhere, even here. Even now, especially within you.